Good day, everyone. Welcome to Helps YouTube Live today. What is it? June 4th, 2025. My name is Eric Olsen, Executive Director of Helps, founder of Helps. Helps is a national law firm that represents seniors and disabled persons who have debt they can't afford to pay. Good to have you here. Got some interesting news, good news. I'll show you an article from the AP. And I saw this last night. And let's see here. No, that's not it. Here it is. Maybe I'm not going to show it to you, but I can tell you about it. Let me hear here. Move this over here, move this over here. See if this works. There we go. Cool. Look at the title of this article. Education Department says it will not garnish Social Security of student loan borrowers in default. We just did a video last week with Senior Living on this. We talked about this, and I know about this issue a whole lot. And so let's look at the article. It's pretty brief. Borrowers who have defaulted on their federal student loans will no longer be at risk of having their Social Security being garnished, an Education Department spokesman said Tuesday. Today's Wednesday. The government last month restarted collections for millions of people in default on their loans. We talked about it here. An estimated 452,000 people aged 62 and older had student loans in default, according to a January report. It's more than that, but anyway, the department has not garnished any Social Security benefits since post-pandemic resumption of collection and has paused any future Social Security offsets, department spoke. So just so you know a little bit on the background, this is kind of interesting. Even before the pandemic, it was stopped. Helps was a plaintiff in a lawsuit against the United States government to have them simplify the procedures to get on what's called currently not collect or income-based repayment plan for seniors that were on student loans. It was really complicated, and seniors didn't know how to do it, and so a lot of seniors with a little bit of income, $1,200–1,500, were having 115% of their Social Security being garnished for student loans, and we filed this lawsuit, and we stopped it, and that was for a couple years before the pandemic, and then when the pandemic hit, they continued it, and they continued till last October, and they didn't do anything. And now with the new administration, they said they were going to start it on May 5th, and now they've gotten a lot of flack apparently, and they've decided to not take money out of student loans. And so I'll get the rest of the article because it is kind of interesting, I think. Here we go. The Trump administration is committed to protecting Social Security recipients who oftentimes rely on fixed income. Advocates encourage the Trump administration to go further to provide relief for the roughly 5.3 million borrowers in default. So, here it helps. We're focused on the seniors, but people getting Social Security, there's not an easy way for them to get on an income-based repayment plan. Then it goes on to say, student loan debt among older people has grown at a staggering rate, in part due to rising tuition that has forced many people to borrow heavily. People 60 and older hold an estimated $125 billion in student loans. That led Social Security beneficiaries who have had their payments garnished to balloon from approximately 6,200 beneficiaries to 192,000 between 2001 and 2019. Okay, so that's good news. If you have a student loan and you were worried about being garnished, not going to happen, at least not for now. It would be so easy for them to change it and make it so that if you were a senior, unlimited income, to get the student loans deferred. All they have to do is adopt the same way the IRS does it. Okay, it's not that difficult. Okay. If you have income under a certain amount, then you get on what's called currently not collectible status for taxes. And that's about $2,500 or less if you're single, or $3,500 or less if you're a couple. And they could do the same thing with student loans instead of having a really complicated procedure. We'll see what happens, but at least right now we don't have to worry about it. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat feature. Thanks for your support and all your kind words in advance. So I titled the topic for today, and we'll talk about it for a few minutes, banks versus credit unions. So I'll tell you what precipitated this topic. I often look at people that we enrolled the day before, and I'll scan those, and I saw we enrolled someone from Oregon. And the note said that they got Social Security, but their Social Security was being garnished by the credit union. And I got into it, and I called the person on the line. And their credit union consists of, there's 3 little credit unions on the Oregon coast, like Garibaldi, Tillamook, and maybe Astoria, I don't know. Okay. And they weren't very big. And apparently this lady's husband had passed away, and he had some debt, and there was an assignment coming out of their wages or their bank account to pay this debt, and it was for like maybe cell phone usage or something like that. It wasn't very much, $1,000 or something like that, $900. Well, anyway, he passed away, and the credit union or the creditor said, okay, he's dead. You don't owe the debt anymore. But the credit union had this wage assignment in play, or this assignment from their bank account to pay this creditor this money every month. And she told them, her credit union said, well, he's dead. I don't owe this. I want you to stop paying this. And the credit union told her, he said, well, no, ma'am, you can't. They have to agree to stop the payment on this debt. And I've heard this before. It's only from credit unions, not recently. And so I talked to her this morning, and I said, okay, whose money is in your bank account? And she said, well, my money, Mr. Olsen. And that's right. I said, who tells your bank, or in this case, your credit union, what to do with your money? And she says, I do. And I said, you're exactly right. Does your credit union should, if you tell them to stop making that payment, they have to stop it. Okay, you don't have to go to the lender to whom you're paying this money to get them to tell the credit union to stop it. You have to. You're the one who stops it. It's your money. You tell your bank what to do with your money. So we talked about what to do, and we'll see what happens. So I decided to contact our paralegals. And I'm going to read you what I told them, because I don't know. At least this is interesting to me because I deal with it. Under the law, banks cannot offset money from a bank account where a person owes money to the bank if the only money in the account is from Social Security. So if you owe money to your bank, and like a credit card or a loan, and you only have Social Security coming in your bank account, and you choose not to pay that debt to your bank, they can't take money out of your account to pay the debt unless you gave them permission to take money out of your account. If the only income that's going in there is Social Security, they can't take it out. Okay. And then I put a little parentheses. I said, I've not seen banks offset money from an account for a loan or credit card not paid to a bank if there is money going into the account other than Social Security, in addition to Social Security. But technically, a law would allow them to do that, to offset that money, but they simply don't do it. That's not their practice. So if you're getting Social Security and you may have a pension going in there, I don't see banks offsetting money to pay them money you owe them that you're not paying them. Okay. Now this can be important to clients because I talk to a lot of elderly people, And it's not easy to change a bank account. Now, if you owe money to the credit union, you're going to need to change it, and you're not going to pay them. You're going to have to change to a different bank or a different credit union where you don't owe any money. But if it's a bank, now the only exception is Truist Bank because they seem to subscribe to the same stationery store as credit unions. But no, if you owe money to the bank and your income is Social Security, you can stay in the same bank and you don't need to pay that debt. Now, I go on to say, um, credit unions are different than banks, obviously. When a person enrolls with a credit union, they don't realize it, but on the form where you enrolled or you signed for your checking account, you gave them permission to take money out of that account if you owe them money. Okay? And you also did it when you made the loan with the credit union. They say if you have a bank account with us, you don't make a payment, we can take the money out of your bank account. Okay. So if you owe money to a credit union, you're not going to pay it. Yeah, you need to change to a different bank. Okay. Um, Banks don't have those forms except for Truist Bank, which they implemented within the last year or so. Um, and I told my paralegals, I wouldn't expect that a credit union would immediately take money out of your account if you didn't make them a payment. You'd have to be behind several months. And for that reason, if someone enrolled in helps and they're not going to pay their credit union, they can stop paying the credit union and take steps to have their Social Security and their retirement go into a new bank account. But I'd tell the person not to give us the credit union information for us to send them a cease and desist letter because I wouldn't want them to get tipped off that they're not going to get paid until after the person's Social Security and pension or other retirement income is going into that new bank account. Make sense? Yeah, makes sense. Um, and the reason is the reason, well, I want our staff to know this and seniors to know this is it can be complicated to change to a different bank. And if you don't have to, don't do it. Don't worry about it. So if you have a question, put it in the chat feature. We'll go over it. Um, and Tiger asks, isn't it true that if you send a cease and desist letter that they're not supposed to call you every single day? Can I sue them for not following the law? Okay, it is true, but the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act applies to debt collectors, not original creditors, except in 7 states. 7 states have taken the federal law and applied it to their own state. So yeah, they can be sued. For every violation, there's a penalty of $1,000 plus attorney fees or actual damages. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of attorneys that are suing. It's kind of complicated, uh, and but helps. We're on the path to start doing that. Just because uh, there's just not enough attorneys suing these credit unions or these debt collectors for violating the law. So we're going to start doing it because someone's got to enforce the law. Otherwise, they think they can get away with it. Okay. I'm, I'm so happy you got a new headset. I don't have to put my hearing aids on until after the live stream. Okay. I'll send that to my tech guy, who is my son. He'll get a kick out of that. He got me a good headset. Okay. When a cease and desist letter is sent, how long does it take them to follow through with their protocol? Well, when you enroll it with Helps, we send you an email confirming you're a member of Helps. It has all our contact information, gives instructions how to get us the collectors. It gives you a lot of additional information. One of the things we tell you, expect that the contact is going to stop within 2 to 4 weeks. Now, why do I say that? Well, you give us the creditors that you don't want to, or debt collectors you don't want to hear from. Uh, um, our goal is to send out a letter to them within 2 to 4 weeks, within 24 to 48 hours. Okay, and it goes out automatically. We have email goes from it's sent remotely. We have a service that sends on the East Coast and the West Coast, and so to speed things up. So they get a cease and desist letter within 2 to 4 weeks. Now, It's got to go in the mail. They've got to get the letter. They got to rip it open. They got to enter the information. So it could take 2 to 4 weeks for that to happen. So in the meantime, if they were to call you, you would tell them you're represented by Helps, give them name and number, tell them not to bother you anymore. Hang up the phone. Once in a while, we have to send a second letter out. Either maybe we got the account and maybe you gave us the wrong account number, or maybe we didn't have a complete account number. Sometimes all we have is the Social Security number, and so sometimes we have to send a second cease and desist letter out. But the contact does dry up. It does stop. Okay. Now, the exception would be an original creditor. Normally, original creditors, they could still send you a bill. Normally, they will stop calling you, but they could still send you a statement or a bill. If you don't want to get that, we tell our clients that you could do a change of address, have the statement go to your name, care of Helps with our address, or you can just chuck it in the garbage. Okay. How is it that Truist Bank can hold and lock a person's account when trying to cash a paycheck that was written to them and hold your money and not give you the money from the check? Well, I haven't heard of that happening. But you'd have to talk to us about that, and we'd go over that with you. I'm not sure exactly the situation, but Truist Bank started doing some strange things a year ago or so. Okay, don't forget to charge my new headset. I charged it for a few minutes. I charged it yesterday, and I charged it for a few minutes this morning. Hopefully, it doesn't go out. Okay. Okay, this person contacts us from Florida. It says, I have a settlement agreement which I cannot meet, which may result in $20,000 judgment. I'm 83 years old and have health difficulties. The debt is mine alone and not of my spouse. I do have funds coming in that I could be used to settle the debt if I chose to do that. And I'll do it if if the law firm isn't abusive. If not, all that income will go into my wife's account. I have another account which I'm setting up as joint tenants with survivorship. My principal source of income is Social Security. Thank you for your service. Well, okay. 20,000 is a lot of debt. He's 83. If he thinks he's going to pass before his wife, maybe he doesn't need to pay that debt at all. If the income is Social Security, it's protected. If the debt is only in his name, if he got sued, if he's got some extra money, he could give it to his wife and have her hold it. So, if he's likely to pass away before her, that way, maybe it doesn't make sense for him to continue to pay that debt or settle it. And if they're going to bother him, enroll in Helps. When people call Helps, we ask a lot of questions. One of the questions we ask, are you married or single? And why do we need to know that? Because often when we talk to people, we want to know what their marital situation is. Husbands and wives don't die at the same time. Maybe the debt is just in the husband's name, and the wife doesn't need to be part of Helps. And maybe we could structure it such so that if he's got extra money, it can be put in the wife would have that money available to her so that when he passes away before she does, it's going to be a little bit easier on her. So that's what we do. And I'd say the same thing to this guy. I'd say, you can settle it if you want. You probably don't need to. Now, if he was buying a home and they owned it jointly together, they live in Florida, when he passed, even if someone were to sue him and he didn't pay that debt and he got sued, when he dies, the property will automatically transfer to the wife. It'll be in her name. The judgment disappears. It's no longer there. Okay. Even if they decided to sell the home during their lifetime, they live in Florida, the home is going to be exempt. It's under a certain amount of acres. It's going to be exempt, and you could get all the money out of it. So sometimes, it doesn't make sense to pay a debt, especially if you're married and you think you're going to go before your spouse. And, you could structure things so that, your spouse will have a little bit of extra money. Because when you go, when one of the spouses go, if you're getting Social Security, one of the Social Securities is going to go away. The surviving spouse is going to get the higher of the two Social Securities. So if the husband got 1,500 and the wife got 1,000, and then he passes away, she's going to get the $1,500, but the 1,000 is going to go away that she's getting. So immediately there's going to be a little money crunch there. So those are the things we talk about. We need to calculate when we talk to people. So this person contacts us. Would like more information about existing timeshare contract with Wyndham Worldmark. You don't need to pay it. If you got a timeshare and you don't use it, which you probably don't, can't afford it, just stop paying it. Not going to do anything. Timeshares don't sue. Don't let anyone. It doesn't matter if they did sue. Your income's protected. I told you this before. A couple of years ago, I asked all my former partners. We did tens of thousands of bankruptcies. Do you guys ever remember a timeshare company suing someone for a debt? None of them could ever remember. They don't sue. So you don't need to pay the timeshare. I could talk a lot about why timeshares are a bad investment. I mean, even if it's paid off, you have to pay an annual maintenance fee. And sometimes the annual maintenance fee, it's cheaper you could probably rent a nice hotel or something anywhere for the same amount you pay for that annual fee. Or sometimes you might get if you're not going to pay anymore, they might say, okay, you can get out of the contract, just pay us $1,500 and sign this paper. Well, you could sign the paper, but don't pay them $1,500. You don't need to pay them that. No, it doesn't matter. They're not going to come after you. If they did, which they're not, but if they did, your income's protected anyway. Okay. Judy asks, I don't know where to go or see in first step to add sons to the house deed. What do I do? No problem adding them, just don't know what to do to get started. Well, it's not always a good idea. It could be. We have a form letter called Protecting a Home for Children that we'll send you. And it's got a link to websites where you can get what's called a deed called joint tenancy with rights of survivorship deed, in which you would deed the property to yourself and your son as joint tenants with rights of survivorship. Okay, so we have an email that we can send you on that. Now, in some states that's not allowed. Louisiana and California, it might be a bad idea because if you do a due deed, then your property taxes are going to go up to the current level. Okay, and under Proposition 13, you might be paying property taxes based on what they were 15 years ago. And so if you change the way the deed is worded, then your property taxes could skyrocket. So it's not always a good idea to add someone's name to the property. So Tweety Bear asks, if I ask a creditor or law firm representing them for proof of last payment, would that restart the clock for statute of limitations? No. The way to restart the clock is if you make a payment. If you make a payment towards the debt. I'm not aware of, it's governed by state law, and I can't imagine there's a state law that says that if you contact them that you're going to restart the statute of limitations. Okay. But once again, probably doesn't matter. Even if you were sued, they can't take anything from you. Okay. This person contacts us from Virginia. I'll be 64 coming up, and I'm Social Security disability. It's my only income. And it says I'm severely hearing impaired. Cannot understand over the phone. I have a roommate. And she talks about some problems there. Struggling with debt. I have a credit card and I have a loan for a heat pump, mold removal, and a personal loan from my bank. I can't afford to pay any of these anymore. I'm current on my other bills. That will change soon. I have a mortgage which I'm current on. I have a credit score of, it's pretty high, as I've always paid my bills. But now I cannot work as my hearing is so bad, and she has other medical issues that prevent her from working. These things make it impossible for me to find something I can do to earn money. I have no other income other than my Social Security disability. I'm in the process of moving to a new bank that will only contain my Social Security disability. I've loaned money and been repaid through the other, and I know that could cause it to be garnished as well, as they can take $360 a month for a personal loan I can no longer afford. Can you help me? Yeah, yeah, we're going to be able to help you. It depends on the state, what your rights are. Um, but if you're only going to get Social Security, uh, no one can touch it. Twice the amount of your Social Security gets deposited in your bank account. Under federal law, is protected automatically from garnishment, regardless of what funds are in there or where they came from. So if you're going to get Social Security disability, if you get, 1,800 a month, twice that would be 3,600 in your bank account's going to be protected. You could stop paying the credit card debt. Now, what happens if you start paying um, the heat pump? Well, they're not going to remove the heat pump. It's attached to the property. They could sue and try to get a judgment, or they may have what's called a UCC lien that could. But they're not going to take the heat pump. This loan for home for mold removal, not an issue. Same with a personal loan for the bank. So we'll when you call, we'll go over this with you, explain to you what your rights are, and you're going to be okay. Now, if you have a huge amount of equity in the home, we might be talking to you about getting a reverse mortgage. You could consider doing that. We don't sell reverse mortgages, but sometimes that could be a good idea. Not for everyone, but for some people, it's an answer to prayer. Um, no longer have to make a mortgage payment anymore. And if depending on how much equity you have in the home, it could give you a little bit of line of credit that supplements your income. Your car's going to be okay. You don't need to worry. So yeah, we can help. You know, I can almost say, almost want to say there's not any senior that's suffering from debt that we can't help in some manner or give them direction on where to go. We don't give legal advice. We give legal information. The information we have is pretty basic stuff. At least in our minds, it's basic stuff, and it can. So you're going to be okay. And you call us if you have a question. 855-435-7787. Helps US. 855 helps US or helps us. And got people you can call right now or call later, and we'll ask you some questions to go over this, and you'll be glad you did. Um, so, Eric, my question is just curious. How long do credit cards send you statements? Oh, I don't know. They would probably send you a statement until they write it off and they turn it over to a collection agency. Then they may stop or they may continue to. You don't need to look at it if you don't want to, and it doesn't matter if it goes up. You're not going to have to pay it. Okay. And once again, if you're a helps client, if you don't want to get the statement, On the back of the statement, you can do a change of address to have the statement go to your name, care of helps with our physical address. Or if you get it online, you can have it sent to our email address. Okay. We tell you how to do that when you enroll in helps. But, important thing to remember is you don't have to pay it. Or I guess the other option is if you get the bill and you don't want to see it, just toss it in the garbage can. So this guy, I don't know if I did a video on IRS taxes, said how you can get on currently not collectible status and not have to pay it. And normally when a senior gets on currently not collectible status with IRS, you don't have to renew it every year. It's ongoing. They know that you're just getting Social Security and a pension, and it's just ongoing. So the guy writes in, he says, "Well, okay, you get on currently not collectible status, but the interest still accrues." That's true. But what I wrote back was, I said, "So what? In 10 years, the statute of limitation expires on the taxes. You don't owe the IRS taxes anymore. So it's going to go away if you live long enough. No need to worry about the IRS taxes." Yeah, some people donate their blood. And yeah, I don't know if there's an age limitation or not. I know someone's son-in-law, not mine, but someone's son-in-law who's probably 40 and makes a good job, and he donates his blood. I don't know, as often as he can, and he does it for money. Not that he needs to, but he does it for money anyway. Yeah, I get so frustrated. I I I read an article yesterday from In Charge Debt Solutions. I and they were telling seniors about debt. It was an excellent article. It was really good, except it left one thing out. They never told a senior, by the way, your Social Security is protected. No one can take it from you. You don't have to pay it, and you can be protected from collector harassment. It danced around the issue, but it never told them that clearly. And one thing it said something is, okay, if even though your Social Security is protected, you still have to deal with the debt. No, you don't have to deal with the debt. You can forget it. And then, of course, it was trying to steer them seniors to call In Charge Debt Solutions. Okay. Mrs. H asked, I just looked at my Social Security account and just saw a 1099. Didn't say where it was from, like what credit card had sent it. Will I need to be concerned about that for next year filing taxes? Probably not. Yeah, remember, if your only income is Social Security, you're not even required to file taxes. And even if you get money other than Social Security under a certain amount, you're still not required to file taxes. And I don't see the IRS following up on seniors that are lower or moderate income on 1099-Cs. What's a 1099-C is if you don't pay a debt over $600, the creditor is technically required to uh, send a notice to the IRS saying that you didn't pay this debt, therefore it should be attributed to you as income. Now, if you do file taxes, you know, um, there's a form called 982. You can file that if you're insolvent, which means if your debt exceeds your assets, there's no tax. But even if you did owe a tax because of a 1099-C, if your income is modest or lower, like I explained, you can get on currently not collectible status with IRS and not even have to pay the tax. I just don't see the IRS being too aggressive on 1099-Cs. Okay. And I did a video on it in pretty much detail, I think 2 years ago on February 9th, that you can look on YouTube Live. 2 years ago on February 9th with my former partner. If an original creditor has a debt that is written off, don't they get a tax write-off as well? How can they then still charge the debtor if they write it off when they get a tax write-off? Well, it's the way they file taxes. So um, if they were to later, it doesn't mean that they still can't collect from you. They can. And if they were to collect from you and get paid, then they have to report that as income. So they're not getting a write-off and not having to pay tax on them on the money. So it's perfectly okay what they do, how they do that. So this person contacts us, desperately need your help. A predatory law firm has filed a judgment against me in small claims court. And I was handed a packet of papers by someone who said I was being sued. I thought I could just ignore it, but discovered that would be a mistake. Texas allows only 14 days to reply before it becomes a default judgment. I have scanned the papers into my laptop and can email them to your firm to look at and contact the law firm. I'm afraid they will freeze or cloud my account even if they can't garnish my wages. What should I do? Well, first off, if you owe the money, you don't need to do anything. Yeah, they could get a judgment, but if your only income is Social Security, pension, disability, VA benefit, your income is protected. As long as you keep the balance in your bank account less than twice the amount of your federal benefit, then if they were to garnish your bank account, which is doubtful they would, they probably don't even know where you bank, uh, the bank would automatically protect twice that amount. Now, if you happen to have more than that in there, you could file a challenge to garnishment or claim of exemption, and the court would order that money be released. So you don't need to worry about your account being frozen or clouded. And then it says, even if they can't garnish my wages, you're right. In Texas, there's no wage garnishment. So if you got a question on some of this stuff, give us a call. We'll go over it with you. Don't want you to worry. That's great news on student loans. Now the SBA needs to follow suit. I agree. They are sending loans to the Treasury for offset of Social Security. No practical solution offered by the SBA for someone on Social Security. You're right. You can file bankruptcy though. The problem with the SBA or these other agency debts, do-re-mi, is that there's not as many people that have that problem, so there's not the political pressure on congressmen to change the rule or law in that area like there would be with student loans where there's hundreds of thousands. Okay, you can always call us and talk to us about this. What do-re-mi is talking about, if you have a debt for like the Small Business Administration or Rural Development Commission or even a VA or something like that, there's a rule that allows them to offset 15% of your Social Security if you have Social Security over $750, and it can be a devastating. And there's no provision for you to get that waived. Okay, thankfully it doesn't happen to many people. Some agencies have implemented procedures to get it waived, but there's no law that tells them they have to do that. Okay, so you can call and talk to us if you're facing that problem. We talk to you about options. So this person contacts us and they say, I'm 72. I have about 12,000 in credit card debt. For whatever reasons, I'm not very intuitive. I guess I don't know what they mean. I know what intuitive means. Maybe they just figure, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to figure this out. I need step-by-step help with this debt. Okay, I understand that part of it. My wife died last year, and we couldn't afford life insurance, nor did she have any retirement funds at the place that she worked. I started Social Security at 62 because I couldn't find employment in my field. I live on Social Security exclusively and have no retirement plans from any of my places of employment. Okay, well, you can stop paying the credit card debt, the $12,000. You can stop doing that. Now, your only income is Social Security. It's protected. If someone were to sue you, you wouldn't have to go to court. Twice the amount of your Social Security each month is protected. Now, you could get a little job if you're able to do that. I mean, you could get self-employment income, or you could, drive Uber, you could deliver groceries, deliver, you know, work at Walmart as a greeter or whatever. I mean, there's different, and a certain amount of your income is going to be protected. Even if they were to sue you, they're not going to find out where you work. So the bottom line is you're going to be fine. You don't have to pay the credit card debt anymore. And if you need our help, we can enroll you in helps, and we'll send a letter to the credit card companies or the collectors you owe money to, and they're going to have to leave you alone, so you're not going to get bugged by them anymore. Our first mission is to protect seniors from collector harassment. Our second mission is to educate seniors how they can maintain their financial independence. And that's probably the number one reason why we have these YouTube videos that, we're clear to explain to seniors how their income is protected and how we can stop the creditors from harassing them. But we also want to talk about other things as well. That's why you can always put questions or comments down here, and I'll try to answer them as we go. So this person contacts us, I've seen a few of your YouTube videos about debt being sued and the amount being protected by law. I would bet that you guys listening to me every day talking about how this income's protected, you know more than maybe 90% of the attorneys out there. They don't understand this law. They don't understand it. Anyway, they don't work in this area. But anyway, I was recently sent a summons for being sued by Discover Credit Card. I don't understand the language of the summons, meaning I don't have an idea when to appear or respond to it. That's natural. They don't make it easy to understand that sometimes. My main concern is that my direct deposit is into a credit union account. After I receive a deposit, I transfer it into another account, union account, and a joint account shared with my daughter. In total, all accounts, including savings, I have around 600, less than twice my Social Security. Well, okay. No, you don't want to do that. So this is what? He's been sued by Discover, so they're eventually going to get a judgment. He doesn't need to do anything about it because his income is protected. Now, he says, my main concern is the direct deposit into his credit union account. So the amount he gets in Social Security deposit in that credit union account is automatically protected from garnishment by his credit union. Okay, so you got $2,000, $4,000 in the bank account is protected automatically in the credit union account. But what he does is he takes the money when it's in the credit union account and puts it into a joint account with his daughter. Well, now, if Discover sues him and gets a judgment and they happen to garnish that bank account, the bank is going to examine that account he has with his daughter, and they're going to see it came from a different bank account. It didn't come directly from Social Security. Therefore, they could garnish those funds. They could hold them up. He'd have to file some paperwork and be able to show the court that the money originally came from Social Security. There could be a headache for him. So You don't need to have that account with the daughter. That's fouling things up. No, that's why we tell people now. If you haven't been sued, I don't care. You can have 100 different bank accounts. So that if you have sued, you probably want to just have one. That's the account to which your Social Security goes. Twice that amount is protected, regardless what other funds are in there, where they came from. Okay. My wife still works, he says. Um, do I have to worry about my creditors suing my wife over unsecured debt that I owe, that he owes? We live in Washington State, a community property state. Okay, good question, and I'll answer it. So, what does that mean, a community property state? Well, there's 7 states in the United States that are community property states. California, Washington, I don't remember them all. What that means is that if you own an asset, if it's in just one of the spouse's names alone, the law imputes that the other spouse has an equal share in that asset. Okay, they own it also, even if their name's not on it. Okay, um, the same thing goes with debt. If one spouse owes a debt, then in a community property state, the law imputes that, well, the other spouse owes the debt as well. Now, the exception could be a business debt, but if it's a household debt, okay. So in this person, they're asking, they got a credit cards um, in his name, and he's worried if I don't pay these credit cards, they're going to come after my wife, and she still works. No, they're not going to come after your wife. Could they? Well, they're not doing it yet. They haven't been doing it for 40 years, 40 plus years, 46 years. I've been in practice. Um, no, they're not going to come after your wife. They just don't do it for a lot of different reasons. Um, a credit card debt, if it's in your name only and you live in a community property state, they're just going to sue you, not you and your wife. Now, there might be an exception out there somewhere. I don't remember seeing one. I have a vague recollection in my distant past of seeing where on a credit card debt they happened to sue both, but that was years ago. They just don't do it. Okay, so I'm going to tell them not to worry about it. But if they were, I'd have another answer. There's always another answer, and in the end, the answers are always seem to always be good. This guy writes in. He says, "Hi, I'm now unable to work. I'm 80 years old, and until 2 weeks ago, I was taking care of my sister. I was paid by the VA. Um, she has passed, and only income I now have is Social Security and a small monthly uh, from my deceased, some retirement from my deceased husband. I have credit card debt I can't pay any longer. And I'm 80 and I have some medical issues. I don't have money to file bankruptcy. I'm just afraid of getting sued." Well, you don't need to worry. You can stop paying the debt. Uh, your income is protected. No one can take it. Uh, are you going to get sued? You might. Probably won't. Doesn't matter if you're sued or not. Creditors can't take anything from you. Your income's going to be safe. You're going to be fine. Okay. So when people enroll in HELPS, we tell them, if you get sued, you get us a copy of the lawsuit. Just need the first 3 or 4 pages. We contact the attorney that sued you, let them know that your income is protected. Understand they're going to get a judgment. Remind the attorney of the protected nature of your bank account. Don't really need to do that because it's protected anyway. And then we call you and explain to you why you don't need to go to court and why you don't need to worry. We send you some emails with some basic information about this. Okay. Don't want you to worry. Person writes in, they say, I recently became guardian and conservator for my 62-year-old sister who has been declared illegally incapacitated. She has far more debt than assets. Her only income is about $2,200 in Social Security, and she has uh, a pension with a little bit more than $100. She has about $65,000 in tax debt and $70,000 in credit card debt. Well, okay. He doesn't need to worry about the taxes, nor does he need to worry about the credit cards. Okay? Doesn't need to pay him. And he can enroll her in helps if he needs to. If there's going to be a problem with the taxes, we'll know what to tell him. And the same thing with the credit card. The IRS would probably do nothing. I mean, he could call him on the phone and get her on currently not collectible status. The worst they would ever do is send a letter saying they intend to offset 15% of her Social Security. But I really doubt they'll do that. They don't do that. I mean, I think IRS has artificial intelligence. They can tell that that's only income, and that if they tried to take 15% of her Social Security, she could easily apply for currently not collectible status, and they would have to weigh the tax and not be able to collect it, so they don't even bother and send in the letter in the first place. Now, there might be an exception, but I would tell him that's what he needs to do, is not worry about it, but open up any letters he gets. Okay, this person calls me from Missouri. If I can get there. Okay, wait a minute here. Okay, they get Social Security and pension income totaling around uh, about, they're 83 years old. It's over 3,000 what they get. Um, but it says they need to get back to us on the exact amounts. We don't need the exact amounts. All we need is the approximate amount you're getting. They rent and they're buying a car. Has another loan for a car that was rear-ended that he doesn't own anymore. Maxed out his credit cards helping a neighbor. We told him what we did, and he simply enrolled in helps. He doesn't need to pay the credit card debt anymore, or the other debt, other loans. It's going to be fine. It with helps, we're not so worried about how much your income is. Uh, if it's Social Security, pension, disability, VA benefit, no matter what it is, it's protected. And some people can make a fair amount of money, but different parts of the country is more expensive to live than others. Our clients generally are modest or lower income or poor. Okay, so it doesn't matter what the income is for you to get us our help. We don't have a problem with people making a huge amount of money and trying to enroll in helps and not paying their creditors. They don't do that. Okay. Looks like we're almost out of time here. So this person calls us from Oregon. 2 months behind on her motorhome payments, which she wants to keep, but she has a lot of credit card debt. She's ready to give up her credit card so she can keep making the motorhome payment because that's where she lives. And so we talked to her and we explained to her, yeah, you can stop paying the credit card debts and use that money to pay your motorhome so you got a place to sleep, and that's what she's going to do. She don't need to worry about the debt anymore. So this person contacts us from Washington. We're almost near the end. I'll probably finish up with this because it kind of circles back to what we talked to in the beginning. This person is from Washington. I'm talking about the state of Washington. They get $1,100 in Social Security and a pension. Um, they're renting. They paid $400 in rent, and they have $9,000 in debt. No lawsuit. So they watch us on YouTube, and it says I think I'm ready to enroll in HELPS. And it says worried about the current affairs of the government and wants to be able to save her money for needs and filing medical bills. She isn't worried about her credit score anymore. It's not doing her any good, she says. Well, that's probably true. And it says worried about the government. Well, it looks like the government did something right. The education department said they're not going to offset student loans anymore. I don't know what happened. We did a video with Senior Living last week. It's been published about a week ago. And then there was a lot of people probably contacting their congressman, a lot of old people saying, I'm worried about getting my Social Security offset. I can't afford to. And finally, the administration realized it didn't make any sense. They need for us to offset people's Social Security. But there might be some people that could have their Social Security. If you're getting Social Security and you have a huge pension or other income and you owe a ton of student loan, yeah, maybe that person should have their Social Security offset. But the problem is you can't just make it a blanket policy to offset anyone who gets Social Security. You got to have a way that people that are having less income, that maybe Social Security is their only income, then you're not going to offset that. But you got to simplify the process than what it was before. Okay, so we'll take one more question here, and then we'll end it because we're about out of time. Marion says, my name is Mary, and I'm from Missouri. Do I have to pay taxes on my Social Security and pension if I can claim one of my daughters for next year? Well, we don't give tax advice, but if you get Social Security and you have a really small pension, you probably aren't going to have to pay taxes. And if you're supporting a daughter as a dependent, then if you are required to file taxes, maybe you won't have to pay any taxes. Okay. You can get on the IRS website, and the IRS website is generally pretty good. Do I have to file taxes? And they'll give you a complete breakdown if you have to file taxes. Okay, we've spent an hour. I want to thank you for participating. Please press the like button, subscribe to our channel. Be sure to share what Helps does with others. If you have any comments, you can put them in the comment section on the video, on the YouTube video, and I'll try to look at those periodically and answer those as they come in. If you have any questions, be sure and call us 855-435-7787, and have a great day, and I will talk to you tomorrow.